All right, it worked. Hi, everybody. My name is Hadi Partovi, as she spoke. First of all, for those of you in the audience, if you get bored, I've made a small app using code.org, so you can play along with code.org bingo. So if you visit that URL, you'll get a little bingo board on your phones. As I say certain words, you can mark them on your little bingo cards if you want, and if you ever get a row or a column, just yell out bingo. I do that every time I speak at teacher conferences. It keeps people a little engaged. And you can also see how the app works by clicking the How It Works button and then change it yourself to use it yourself for future speeches. Anyway, I always start talking in the words of my personal story, which we heard a little bit about earlier. This is a picture of me growing up in Iran. And a few years after that picture was taken, oh, I'm the one on the left. I have a twin brother, so it's a little confusing. There's two of us. But a few years after this picture was taken, the country broke out into a revolution and a war. And there was this Iran-Iraq war, which went for many years. So from ages 6 through 12, I spent pretty much every night of my life in a basement with my eyes closed and my hands on my ears, just simply hoping that the bombs that were coming into our city wouldn't hit our house. And then we'd spend every morning going to the roof and seeing which homes were still left and which ones had been destroyed. It was the worst possible way to grow up. But my life really changed one day when my dad brought home a magical gift. He brought home a Commodore 64 computer, and it might have been the only personal computer in the entire country at the time. But this wasn't actually the magical gift. The magical gift was a book that he provided, because the computer itself didn't have any software, any apps, any games, and he didn't bring any of those home either. But he said, if you read this book and teach yourself how to code and I'll help, you can write your own apps and games. And so I spent most of my childhood as the only fun thing I had going on in life was basically learning to code from my dad. And then by the time I came to this country as an immigrant, our family didn't have very much money, but I was really good at coding, and so was my twin brother. So when our friends were getting jobs as busboys in restaurants or as babysitters, we started interning at tech companies starting in 9th grade, and now I'm living the American dream. And I've had the opportunity to basically start my own nonprofit and to live a very comfortable life. And the reason I started code.org is because the American dream feels broken. Most kids today, their dads are not teaching them to code, and it's still 30 years later. At this point, every high school in Iran teaches computer science in high school. We're in America, the country that invented the computer, and we still don't teach this in our schools. So our vision is that every student in every school should have the opportunity to learn computer science. Now, this is something that most people take for granted for different reasons, but I want to talk a little bit about the reasons why it's important to teach computer science. And there's really 3 different reasons. Most people think of only one of those reasons. The first reason is that it leads to great economic opportunity and the best careers. The second is that it's foundational for every child, regardless of career. And the third is because computer science can make school fun again. And I want to talk a little bit about all 3 of these. In terms of the opportunity, this is what you hear about the most when people talk about computer science. Computing is now not only the fastest growing sector of careers, it's not only the highest paying, but it's also the largest sector of all new wages in America. And this isn't just in California or just on the east or west coast. It's in every industry and in every state. To show you a picture of this chart shows all the sort of sectors of new wages in the country, with computing as number 1, management as number 2, sales, healthcare, manufacturing. Computing occupations are the largest slice of the pie in terms of new wages. Now, in terms of what kids study in school, it's also the best paying thing you could learn. This graph compares the lifetime earnings of a high school graduate versus a college graduate versus a college computer science graduate. The difference between going to college, getting any other degree, and getting a computer science degree is almost as big as the difference between high school and college. In fact, the ROI of a computer science degree from a community college is better than the ROI of a liberal arts degree from Harvard, which is unbelievable to make that comparison. But now, the jobs are the number 1 reason people hear about this. Certainly when you're working in a state government, governors and legislatures like to talk about economic opportunity, but only about 10% of our children are going to go into these jobs, maybe 20%, as technology advances. I believe computer science is really foundational for every child, regardless of career. When I went to high school, every school would teach how the digestive system works, how electricity works, and the Pythagorean theorem. And you'd learn this whether or not you want to become a surgeon or an electrician or a mathematician. It's just part of learning how the world works. In this day and age, learning how an algorithm works or how the internet works, these things are equally foundational for today's children. We all know our kids are using these things every single day in their daily lives, and most of us as adults don't even understand how they work. 30 years ago, or 20-something years ago, Steve Jobs said, "I view computer science as a liberal art. It should be something that everybody learns, that everybody takes a year in their life to take one of these courses because it teaches you how to think." 20 years later, last year, President Obama said that in the new economy, computer science is no longer an optional skill. It's a basic skill. So the reason to teach computer science isn't just the economic opportunity for the minority of kids who go into this as tech workers. It's for every kid to understand how the world works. The third reason I described is, for me, actually personally the most important one, which is that computer science can help make school fun again. And to actually showcase this, I have, by complete random fortune, somebody who can help me demonstrate this. And this is somebody who has actually never come on stage with me before, but she's traveling with me in Washington, D.C. So I'd like to invite my 8-year-old daughter, Sophia, up on stage. Sophia, you want to stand in front of the podium so people can see you briefly? This is Sophia. She's in, what grade are you in?
Where?
She's in 3rd grade. And so this here is code.org, which many of you may or may not be familiar with. And she's going to wear a little code hat too, so you might be able to see her over the podium. And Sophia, I'm going to bring this microphone down so you can talk. So Sophia, can you first draw a little square on the screen? So if you can see, she's made, can people see that, or should I make it a little bit bigger? I'll make it, oops. All right, so she's saying let's repeat 4 times, move forward 100 pixels, turn right. So that just says 4 times it'll repeat and draw a square. Now can you reset it and then make each side of the square a different color? So now that's a square with 4 different sides, 4 different colors. And now can you take all of that code and put it into a function? All right, now repeat and make like 50 or 100 squares. You're going to need to reset your code again. So now you have a function that makes a square, and you can call that function as many times as you want. Call that function like 100 times or whatever big number you want. Kids love to use repeat loops because they can type in 1,000 or 100 or 1,000,000, and the computer will do it. So now that'll draw 50 squares in a row. Now, can you put a little angle between those squares? Maybe like, well, you decide how big of an angle. All right, 24 degrees. All right, thank you so much, Sophia. So, the reason I like showing this is for kids to be able to learn about functions and angles while doing that is so much more fun than just doing it in terms of solving a multiple choice problem or a word problem. And Sophia also didn't learn coding from her dad, although it might appear that way. She learned coding at school and from code.org. And in fact, I actually, because I was so busy, I literally never went to my own kids' school to tell them that you guys should use this thing that I'm working on the side. So I learned that they were doing it when they came home with certificates with my name, and I'm like, oh, great, they're doing it too. So she literally learned this stuff at school, like many other kids. And now just to give you examples of, I'm back on the slides. So just to give examples of what other children are making with this, this is a drawing made using the exact same program used by another 8-year-old in school. This is a game made by students in Oakland Unified. This is an app made by students in Seattle. And the one on the left is elementary school, the one in the middle is middle school, the one on the right is high school. But these are games and apps made by students in America's public schools using computer science. To give you some of the comments that these students say as they do this is from a middle school student in Idaho saying, "I loved it purely and wholly. It was fun to do. I want to do that over and over again. I really enjoyed what I could do with it. I enjoyed the interactivity and how it felt to control what happened. It was really satisfying. I wish we could do it every day." That's something that most school teachers never hear about what goes on in school. And from Brooklyn, one of the teachers saying our students have asked to have an hour every week. Another teacher in Florida, who's the first-time computer science teacher, saying, "This is crazy fun, Mr. Feller. I'm going to tell all my friends to take this class." And that's from one of my AP computer science principal students. And then lastly, a teacher from Minnesota saying, "Today's project was a slam dunk for the students. The students came in right away and started talking about it before the bell rang. And then when I tried to start the class, I realized that the students that were talking were actually talking about their project and their schoolwork." This is the kind of feedback that teachers are regularly telling Code.org about computer science. And in fact, a group called Change the Equation did a survey about computer science. Actually, they did a survey about biology. They wanted to understand how to get more students interested in biology, and they asked students in high schools around the country, what subjects do you like a lot? Turns out computer science was behind only art and dance as the third favorite subject students in high school want to learn. And so consider this is the subject that leads to the best paying and fastest growing careers, and it's the subject that students want to study the most, but our schools still don't teach this. And for me, when I started Code.org, I used to tell people you should do this to prepare yourself for the future career. And I asked, what does a career look like for a student graduating in 2030? A student that starts kindergarten today will be finishing roughly in 2030. I used to say that unless you plan on flipping burgers or driving a truck for a career, you're going to need to learn something about technology. It turns out there's now robots that can flip burgers, and there's trucks that drive themselves, and yet our schools aren't preparing kids for this future. I really believe that teaching computer science is among the most important things we could do for our children and for our country. We have so many debates in America about how we teach, whether it should be more personalized, more blended, smaller classrooms, longer school hours, more testing, less testing, and there's so little discussion about what we teach and whether the things that these kids are learning are going to be actually useful to them. There's not enough debate about should kids be memorizing so many things when they can just Google it whenever they need it. And meanwhile, our country is facing all these other problems like the income gap, the lack of opportunity, Americans feeling frustrated that the jobs of the past are going away. And we as America's educators, it's our job to prepare the future workforce for the jobs that they're going to have in 20, 30 years. Now, unlike most nonprofits, what I talk about isn't just an idea or an opportunity without results. Most nonprofits talk about the problem, and then they say, "Thank you very much, please help us solve this problem." I actually want to talk about the results, and because the work that we've done at Code.org has incredible results, and it's been a global teacher-led, educator-led movement, and that movement really started with the Hour of Code. The Hour of Code is really just a seed that we planted. It's not the whole thing, but I have a short video to pitch the Hour of Code because we're coming around that time of year again in 2 months. So for everybody whose state is not yet doing a statewide Hour of Code initiative, I want to get you all excited about it. So we're going to play this video real quickly if it works. And whoever's managing the audio, I hope the audio plays. If it doesn't, we'll skip the video. Testing. Can we get audio? I don't think it is. All right, I'm going to skip the video. I don't want to debug this on stage. All right, well, the Hour of Code is amazing. I hope everybody does the Hour of Code. What you would have seen from that video is that we aim to get to 200 million hours of code done, and we've now passed 400 million hours of code in 4 years. So, and this year, our hope is to get to 500 million. 100 million hours of code a year means Every single day, there's about 300,000 hours of people coding, which is crazy. Just in the time that I've been speaking, we've had about 20, 30,000 kids begin doing some form of coding on code.org. In every given hour, that's roughly how many kids do it. But the hour of code is really just the seed that we plant. In 1 hour, you don't learn how to code. We don't do an hour of math or an hour of science. We teach these things year-round, every year. But really what you learn in an hour of code is that your classroom can do this, and that the 8-year-olds can do this, that the African-American kids can do this, the ones who don't have computers at home can still learn to code. And once you realize that you can do it in your classroom, you start wondering, why don't we do this more than 1 hour? And as you see, then people see the kids themselves ask for more than 1 hour. And so really, the hour of code has sparked the passion of educators globally, hundreds of thousands of them. And this then caught the attentions of celebrities, CEOs, even presidents. We've had 8 different presidents and prime ministers all do the hour of code, including President Barack Obama. And now governors as well. Now this is driving lasting change globally in the classroom, not just to teach 1 hour, but to teach years of computer science. The other thing the hour of code has done is it's really changed perceptions about computer science. When I went to school, computer science was this super nerdy thing that you didn't want to tell anybody that you were studying. You definitely didn't want the girls to find out that you were doing it because it was so geeky and you could never get a date if you're seen as one of those coder people. But now 90% of parents want their kids to learn computer science in school. The majority of Americans believe that computer science is cool, and especially in a way that it didn't used to be 10 years ago. And the majority of parents, and especially the majority of teachers, believe computer science should even be required for every student to learn. This is a dramatic difference, and most Americans not only think it should be required, they put it as the next most important subject after reading, writing, and math. So we've really changed people's perception about computer science. But the real tough thing is about changing what happens in schools. And for that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the work that we've done in Oakland Unified School District. When Code.org began working in Oakland 2 years ago, only one school in Oakland had a computer science class from a teacher who had taught it to herself and begun teaching the course. And we basically helped that teacher with curriculum and professional development to get every teacher in Oakland, or not every teacher, but one teacher in every school in Oakland, the training so that they could offer computer science in every single school in Oakland, not just introductory computer science, but AP computer science. 2 years later, every school in Oakland teaches computer science, and they offered the AP exam, the new AP Computer Science Principal exam, for the first time last year. Not only did every child have the opportunity, this course was so popular, it became the 5th most popular AP course in the district in its first year. And it's not a surprise because Oakland is in the Bay Area. These kids are right across the water from Facebook and Google and Twitter and all these companies that are making billionaires all the time, and they're in Oakland in a school system that doesn't offer a pathway for them to even have that opportunity. So, and not only did computer science become the 5th most popular AP, it was the 2nd most high-scoring AP, and it was being taught by students taught by teachers who were not computer science teachers, taught by math teachers, English teachers, science teachers, history teachers, and even art teachers. And the students in these courses beat their own AP scores at math, at science, at history, at science, or art, taught by the teachers for those subjects. They got a better score on the computer science exam because this is something the kids really actually enjoy doing, and that's what makes it so powerful. The work that happened in Oakland is not just limited to Oakland. We've had over 120 school districts district-wide have similar results, including New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, Vegas, Houston, Broward, San Francisco, Denver, Austin. All of the largest school districts in the country practically have been adopting computer science. In the last 4 years, we've had 60,000 teachers attend in-person professional development workshops with Code.org. Over 20% of all the students in the entire country now have accounts on Code.org, which is a crazy number considering this didn't exist 4 years ago. 31 states have changed their policies thanks to the work of our advocacy coalition and are now embracing computer science in different ways, whether changing to embrace standards, changing graduation policies, teacher certification. And then globally, it's now 12 countries have changed the national curriculum to add computer science as part of the national curriculum. As you know, in this country, we don't have a national curriculum, so there's no single button that somebody can push. but we're really the ones leading this change and watching other countries do the same. And this really is thanks to America's educators. It's thanks to people like yourselves, as well as the teachers in your states who basically embraced this field and decided this should be part of the system. You know, Code.org has just been an enabler. We've provided messaging, videos, curriculum, teacher training, but it's really America's teachers, schools, districts, and states that have decided, yes, we need to do this, this is important, and actually have been working with us to change their school system. As was referenced earlier, we had a big announcement with the White House just last month, and this is a pretty big deal. You know, last president was a big fan of computer science and announced the Computer Science for All initiative, but that was a proposal to Congress to get funding, which didn't happen because Congress didn't fund it. This president basically signed a presidential memo saying that the Department of Education must spend $200 million a year towards high-quality STEM with an emphasis on computer science. And the details of how that works haven't come out yet, but we know that the Department of Education is going to start rolling out its guidelines in terms of new grant opportunities, and computer science programs are all going to have a special highlight in many of the competitive grant programs. What this means is school districts applying for those competitive grants are going to be more likely to get that money if they offer a computer science program, which therefore means every state that decides to make an aggressive move in computer science is going to have a greater likelihood of getting federal money from competitive grant programs. All of which means if there wasn't enough reason to go after computer science in schools, there's now a financial incentive to do it as well in terms of the federal money. And this adds even incentives. Now what we've built is not just a movement, it's also a platform. You know, we're here to talk about personalized learning, and Code.org is one of the largest and fastest spreading online learning platforms in history. Now it's not yet what I would call personalized learning myself, because students get to go at their own pace, but we don't accelerate students without their knowledge. So students can jump ahead and teachers can ask them to jump ahead, but the system doesn't automatically personalize it for you, but that's something we're working on, and it's something that once we do that, I believe we'll end up being the largest personalized learning platform because of our scale. We have roughly 10 to 20,000 students joining Code.org every single day. Roughly 10 to 20,000 teachers join us every single month, and it's really the teachers that are bringing on board the students. And this is an online platform that's designed to enable any teacher or student to begin coding and creating immediately. You don't need prior experience, you don't need to install any code, you don't even need to log in. You could just start coding without even creating an account, and as a result, it's become one of the fastest spreading platforms in online learning. Roughly 10% of all of the world's students have used Code.org in the last 4 years. So in any country you go to, it's been used. And it's free and open source and all these things that make schools want to use it. When it comes to personalized learning, this is really important because everybody who's putting infrastructure in schools is wondering, what are we going to do with that infrastructure? Personalized learning is part of it, but also teaching a subject that we never even taught before is part of it as well. And computer science is one of the best subjects for introducing teachers to blended learning and personalized learning. And the reason I say this is if you want to change teacher practice, it's easier to do that in a subject they've never taught before. If you try to change an English teacher's practice, they're like, you know, I already know how to teach English, don't tell me how to do it a different way. I've been teaching math for 20 years, I don't want to go to a PD program to teach a different math than the math I've already been teaching. Whereas with computer science, teachers are like, I have no idea how to teach this. I never learned it myself. Can somebody show me the ropes? And if you say, well, here's this blended learning platform that's personalized, that's how you do it. They're like, all right, I'll give it a try. It's basically, they don't have another option. And so as a result, we've helped get blended learning into hundreds of thousands of classrooms, and we'll also be getting personalized learning into those classrooms as well. Even the way Code.org works right now, there's a dashboard where teachers can see for every student the progress and how far they are, and it'll highlight which kids are behind and what topics they're behind on. We're a small organization. We're only 4 years old and we're 60 people, but we think very big. We recently published results on the AP Computer Science exam. This is a chart of AP Computer Science growth in America's schools, and AP Computer Science has been the fastest growing course this decade, but we only offered it last year for our first time. So this was last year's numbers with the launch of the new exam and the first time Code.org's teachers began offering AP Computer Science in their classrooms. More interestingly, these are the charts of girls in AP Computer Science, and Black and Hispanic students in AP Computer Science, showing incredible growth in this field in terms of diversity, which is so personally important to me and so important to any of us who are worrying about fixing the opportunity gap.
Bingo.
Oh, bingo. Wow, somebody was playing. That's awesome. So Code.org has now become the largest provider of AP curriculum in computer science in schools, but most importantly, 73% of our students pass the exam, and 70% of them want to study computer science after graduation. And this is really important, not because we're trying to get every student to study computer science after graduation, but because of the diversity of the students. Diversity is something that is so sorely lacking in this field, and it's just really unfair. And the reason it's unfair is because the American dream is a global ideal about everybody having opportunity. Each of us is here right now because we caught a break one day in our lives. For me, the break I caught was when my dad brought home a computer and decided to teach me how to code. But most of these kids in school today, their dad is not going to be teaching them how to code. Most of them don't even have a computer at home in the first place to learn how to code. And school is where they're expected to learn those things. But the school system of today, when it doesn't teach computer science, leads only the rich, white, upper middle class boys to learn computer science. And the vast majority of our country is basically left behind. In Code.org's classrooms, because we focus on bringing this into school and we focus on diversity, the picture of who our students look like are completely different. So 20% of America's students are coding on Code.org. Almost half of them are girls, almost half of them are underrepresented minorities, and almost half of them can't afford lunch in school, but they're learning to code. And that's really the power of America's schools deciding to fix an inequality in our school system and our economy. The last thing I want to say is, people say thank you a lot to us, but the people who deserve the real thanks are the folks who are funding Code.org. America's largest tech companies get a lot of flack for a lot of things, and they probably deserve it. But the one thing they don't get enough applause for is the work that they're doing to help get computer science in America's schools. And Code.org has been something that teachers love doing and students love doing. It's completely free because these folks are footing the bill. So please thank them. If any of you are tweeting, tweet a thanks to one of them as well. And that's it for my presentation and slides. So thank you very much. Those of you who have impact on schools, please ask your schools to teach computer science. And if the teachers are scared, ask them to start with 1 hour of code. It's the easiest thing to ask. Especially this December, we're going to have the largest campaign ever. So thank you very much, and we'll get started with our panel.